Don't get out here, trust me. The taxi driver's voice cracked like glass, and for a moment I thought he might actually puke right there on the curb. My stomach dropped into my shoes. The city lights flickered across his sweaty face, and something in his eyes screamed danger. I had just assumed this would be a regular late-night ride home, but apparently, Normal had packed its bags and left town. Relax, man, I tried to joke, though my voice came out shaky. It's just a street, right? What's the big deal? He didn't answer. His hands gripped the wheel like it owed him money. Every second that ticked by felt heavier, like the night itself was leaning in closer, pressing down on the car. I glanced out the window. At first, nothing seemed off, just a few flickering neon signs, a stray dog scavenging through trash, and the occasional drunk stumbling down the sidewalk. But instinct screamed at me that something was very wrong. You don't understand, he finally muttered, his voice low, urgent. His eyes met mine, wide and pleading. They're watching. They know you're here. Please, just don't get out. My chest tightened. Who the hell knew I was here? And why did it feel like the shadows themselves were leaning in, listening? My mind raced through possibilities. Was it some random gang? A stalker? Or something worse? Before I could ask more, headlights swept across the street, too many for a normal patrol. And then, sirens. Loud, deafening, echoing off the walls of every building. My heart pounded in my ears. Seconds later, the car was surrounded by police. Blue and red lights bounced across the dashboard, illuminating the driver's terrified face and my own pale reflection. The taxi driver's hands shook on the wheel. I told you not to come out here, he whispered, almost to himself. I realized then how little control any of us had. Every horror story I'd ever mocked felt like a warm-up act compared to this. I gripped the seat tighter. The air in the car seemed to thicken, the smell of asphalt and sweat and fear blending into one suffocating cocktail. I could hear my own breathing, ragged, as adrenaline started surging. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Okay. What the hell is going on? He swallowed, shaking his head. I can't explain everything, but you're not safe. Whoever's after you, they move fast, they move smart. If you step out, his words cut off as he glanced at the rearview mirror, eyes darting side to side. They'll get you in seconds. Trust me on this. Just stay in the car. I wanted to argue, but the way his hands trembled, the sweat streaking down his face, made me pause. Every instinct in my body was screaming that he wasn't just being paranoid. And then a sudden movement outside caught my eye, a shadow flitting across the sidewalk, disappearing behind a parked van. My pulse spiked. See that? I whispered. He nodded, muttering under his breath. They're close. Too close. Time slowed. The sirens grew louder. Footsteps echoed in the distance. I felt trapped in a nightmare where every corner hid danger. And then, as if on cue, the police cars closed in from every side, their lights blinding, sirens screaming, engines revving. The taxi was boxed in. There was no escape. My mind raced through every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. What did they want from me? Why now? And more importantly, was the driver going to keep me alive? I swallowed hard. My hands clenched the edge of the seat. Every horror movie I'd laughed at suddenly felt like a documentary. This was real, and I was in the eye of it. And I had no idea how or if I'd get out alive. Even as I sat frozen, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The night wasn't done with me yet. Not by a long shot. The second the police cars surrounded us, my stomach did a full flip. My head felt like it was vibrating with a million alarms going off at once. The taxi driver's hands were shaking so badly, I thought the wheel was going to snap out of his grip. Just stay calm, he muttered, voice barely above a whisper, but his eyes darted like a scared animal. Don't make any sudden moves. They'll see you. Before he could finish, a uniformed officer slammed open a car door, flashlight stabbing into the taxi like a knife. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't even process how fast this had all escalated. 1 second, I'm just getting a ride home, and the next, I'm boxed in by half a dozen cop cars, their engines growling, lights flashing like some kind of urban apocalypse. "Sir, step out of the vehicle," one officer barked, voice sharp and commanding. There was no room for negotiation. My hands instinctively went up. My legs felt like lead. "Wait, please." I tried to explain, but the words got stuck in my throat. The driver turned to me, panic etched across his face. "I told you, don't get out." I froze. The cops didn't flinch. They moved with precision, circling the car, scanning every shadow, every reflection. I could feel their eyes on me, judging, calculating, ready to act. My mind raced. What the hell did they think I'd done? Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Hold on. He's with me." It was the driver. He shot up from his seat and raised both hands. "This guy's clean. He doesn't know anything. You're making a mistake." For a second, the world paused. Even the flashing lights seemed to dim. But the officers weren't convinced. One moved closer, flashlight swinging over my face. "Who are you running from?" he demanded. "And why were you out here at this hour?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. I had no answer. How do you explain that someone, somewhere, wanted you dead, and you had no clue why? The driver muttered something under his breath, his voice low and frantic. I caught the words. "They'll kill us if they know we're helping him." My heart hammered. Suddenly, one officer stepped back, speaking into his radio. The others paused. A tense silence fell over the scene. And then a new presence emerged from the shadows. Someone tall, dressed in black, moving faster than humanly possible. I barely caught a glimpse before he disappeared behind the police cars. My stomach lurched. They're here. They hadn't gone away. They were playing some sick game, and now, somehow, I was in the middle of it. The driver shot me a look that said it all. "Hold on, you're not safe yet." And in that moment, I realized the night was far from over. Whoever was after me was smarter, faster, and closer than I had ever imagined. And surviving this was going to take every ounce of wit, luck, and courage I could muster. The night air felt heavier, almost suffocating as the officers held their positions. I sat frozen, eyes darting between the flashing lights, the cops, and the trembling taxi driver beside me. My brain was spinning faster than a carousel, trying to piece together a puzzle that didn't make any sense. "Sir, step out slowly. Hands where we can see them," one officer ordered again. My legs trembled as I obeyed, climbing out of the car like a puppet on strings. The cold night hit me like a wall, and I shivered, not just from the temperature, but from the raw fear crawling up my spine. The driver stepped out too, still pleading with the cops. "He doesn't know anything. He's just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time." His voice was hoarse, desperate. But something in the way the officers glanced at each other told me it wasn't that simple. I could feel eyes on me, eyes that didn't belong to the police. A flicker in the shadows, a movement too quick to track. Someone, or something, was watching, waiting. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about the cops anymore. There was a predator in the night, silent, calculating, and closer than I wanted to admit. One officer finally approached, his flashlight slicing through the darkness. "You need to answer our questions. Now, who are you running from?" I opened my mouth, trying to explain, but words failed me. I couldn't tell him about the messages, the shadows following me, the sense that someone wanted me gone before I even knew why. My mind raced for an excuse, a lie, anything but truth. Truth would get me killed. Suddenly, the taxi driver grabbed my arm, pulling me back slightly. "Look! Over there!" He pointed, and my heart jumped into my throat. Across the street, someone or something slipped behind a parked van. It was fast, silent, unnaturally precise. I blinked, and it was gone. "Did you see that?" I asked, voice barely audible. The driver nodded, lips tight. "They're scouting. They're making sure no one interferes. And they're close. Way too close." Sirens echoed louder, flashing lights dancing across every building, but my eyes were locked on the shadows. Whoever was after me was playing with us, waiting for the perfect moment. The fear inside me wasn't just adrenaline anymore. It was real, primal terror that made my chest tight and my hands clammy. And then, just as I thought the nightmare couldn't get any worse, I felt a tap on my shoulder. A voice, low and dangerous, whispered right into my ear. "Thought you could hide, huh?" I spun around, nothing, just the night, the flashing lights, and my racing heart. But the message was clear. They were here, watching, and I wasn't safe, not for a second. The cold night air cut through me like knives, but I barely noticed. My eyes were glued to every shadow, every flicker of movement. The city felt alive in a way that was terrifying, every sound amplified, every whisper of wind carrying danger. The taxi driver's hands were still trembling on the hood of his car. "We don't have much time," he muttered. "They're not just scouting anymore. They're planning. And if they catch you out here—" His words trailed off, but I understood. Death didn't need to finish the sentence. It was obvious. An officer barked orders, his voice sharp, pulling me back into reality. "Step away from the car. Keep your hands visible." I obeyed, but my brain couldn't stop racing. Who were they? And why me? Then, from across the street, I saw movement too fluid to be human. Someone or something was weaving through the light and shadows, never fully visible, but always watching. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. The taxi driver grabbed my arm again, his grip surprisingly firm despite his fear. "Listen to me. You have to move. Now. There's a back alley, just over there. We can get you out, but you have to trust me." I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to run the other way, to fight, to do anything but follow him. But looking at the cops, looking at the flashing lights, I realized there was no safety here. Not with the shadows lurking, not with whatever or whoever was out there. We sprinted across the street, dodging pools of light and the echoing sirens. My legs burned, lungs screamed for air, but the taxi driver kept urging me forward. The alley yawned ahead, dark and unwelcoming, but it was better than staying in the open. Halfway through, a loud crash sounded behind us. I spun my head. An officer had tripped over something, sending a car door slamming into a dumpster. The sound echoed, and I knew instantly it had drawn attention. A chilling laugh cut through the night, low and mocking. I froze. It wasn't human, or if it was twisted, full of malice and intent. The shadow I'd glimpsed earlier was now closer, slipping between streetlights, moving with unnatural speed. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. The taxi driver shoved me behind a stack of trash bins. "Stay low," he hissed. "They can't see you if you stay in the shadows. But you don't make a sound. Not a single sound." I crouched, barely daring to breathe. My pulse thundered in my ears as the shadow glided past, so close I could feel its presence, icy and suffocating. Every step it took was deliberate, patient, hunting, and then it stopped. Just for a second. Its gazer, whatever it had, locked onto me. My stomach turned. That moment stretched, frozen in terror. And then, without warning, it vanished. The silence that followed was worse than the chaos before. I wanted to move, to run, but my body refused. The taxi driver whispered, voice trembling, "They know you're here." And this was just the start. "You're not safe anywhere, not even with the cops." I swallowed hard, realizing the horrifying truth. Whatever was after me, it wasn't just smart. It was unstoppable. And the night was far from over. The alley smelled of garbage and wet asphalt, but I barely noticed. Every sound, the drip of water from a leaky pipe, the scuttle of a rat, even my own ragged breathing, felt like it could give me away. The taxi driver crouched beside me, still scanning the shadows. "They're everywhere," he muttered, "and they're smart. Smarter than any normal criminal. You can't just run. Not now. I swallowed, trying to steady my shaking hands. Who? Who are they? My voice sounded small, weak. He shook his head. I don't know exactly, but I've seen this before. They move fast, strike hard, and vanish before anyone even knows what hit them. And they're targeting you. My mind reeled. Targeting me? Why? What the hell had I done? I had no enemies, at least none that I knew of. But looking at his panicked face, I realized the truth. I had stumbled into something way bigger than I could handle alone. We moved slowly through the alley, every step calculated, every sound minimized. Then a sudden noise, a metallic clang echoed from somewhere behind us. My pulse jumped. I pressed myself flat against the wall, heart hammering, barely daring to breathe. She, the driver, whispered. They're close. A shadow flickered at the far end of the alley. Too fast to be human, but somehow it felt alive. Hunting. My stomach lurched. I wanted to scream, to run, but I forced myself to stay still. The driver motioned me to follow, creeping forward like a ghost. Then, just as we reached a corner, a figure emerged. Tall, black clothing blending with the night, and a mask, or maybe it was just a shadow, but the presence screamed danger. The driver froze, eyes wide. Not good, he muttered. I felt frozen, trapped in a nightmare. The figure didn't move like a human. It was silent, deliberate, stalking, and then it raised a hand, pointing straight at me. My heart stopped. Every instinct screamed to bolt, but my legs refused. The driver grabbed me again. Go, now! We sprinted, zigzagging down the alley, trying to put distance between us and the shadow. Sirens still wailed somewhere in the distance, but they felt like a background chorus to this personal horror. And then, as if mocking our efforts, a voice called from behind, low and chilling. You can't hide forever. I risked a glance over my shoulder. Nothing. Just darkness. Silence. And the creeping sense that whatever was hunting me was always one step ahead. The taxi driver pulled me into a side passage, one so narrow I had to squeeze through. We stopped, gasping, hearts racing. This is the only way I know, he said, voice trembling. If we make it out, you have to listen to me. No questions, just follow. I promise. It's the only shot you've got. I nodded, words failing me. My entire body was trembling. And as we moved deeper into the passage, I realized something terrifying. The night wasn't just dangerous. It was alive, and it had a single focus. Me. The side passage smelled of mold and wet brick, and the darkness pressed in so tight it felt like it had weight. My lungs burned as I followed the taxi driver, every step careful, deliberate, trying not to make a sound that would give us away. They're not far, he whispered, voice tense, and they're not playing games anymore. This isn't a chase. It's a hunt. My stomach twisted. Hunt. That word alone made my blood run cold. I tried to calm myself, but my hands shook uncontrollably. The shadows ahead seemed alive, moving with a rhythm that didn't belong to any normal person. We rounded a corner, and the driver froze, pressing a finger to his lips. Listen. I strained my ears. Faint footsteps echoed behind us. Fast, silent, deliberate. Whoever or whatever it was, they were close. Too close. Keep moving, the driver hissed. We have to reach the next exit. It's our only shot. We ducked under a low pipe, squeezed through a narrow opening, and my heart raced so hard, I thought it would burst. Every instinct screamed to run faster, but I forced myself to keep calm, to follow his lead. Suddenly, a metallic clang rang out behind us. My head snapped around. Shadows flickered. Someone or something was there. The driver grabbed my arm again, pulling me into a dark alcove. They're right on us. We have maybe seconds. I swallowed hard, trying to catch my breath. Who are they? What do they want from me? He shook his head. I don't know. I only know this. They're not ordinary criminals. They're organized, precise, and deadly. I've seen their work before. People don't just disappear like this unless someone's behind it. And now, you're on their radar. A shiver ran down my spine. Radar. Target. Hunting. Words that should have stayed in action movies were now my reality. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do something, but fear had frozen me completely. Then, just as we started moving again, I felt it. A presence. Not behind us, not in front, but beside us. My pulse jumped. I risked a glance and saw it. A figure, impossibly still, leaning against the wall just a few feet away. Its head tilted slightly, as if studying me, calculating my next move. The driver cursed under his breath. "Don't stop. Don't look at it. Move." We ran again, zigzagging through the narrow corridors of the alley system, my legs on fire, lungs screaming, heart pounding in my ears, and all the while, the sense of being watched, hunted, closed in on me like a physical force. And then, just when I thought we might have a chance to escape, a shadow shot across our path so fast, it knocked the driver into the wall. I stumbled, almost falling, as a low, chilling laugh echoed around the brick walls. "You can't run," it whispered. I froze. My mind screamed. The walls, the shadows, the night itself, it all felt alive. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about being clever, being fast, being smarter than something that seemed impossible to outsmart. The driver groaned, pushing himself off the wall. We need another way. Follow me." I nodded, barely able to move, and together we disappeared deeper into the maze of alleys, every step taking us closer to the unknown, and closer to whatever nightmare was hunting me. The alley stretched ahead like a never-ending tunnel, the darkness so thick it felt like it could swallow us whole. Every sound, the drip of water, the distant hum of traffic, even our own footsteps felt amplified, echoing off the walls like a warning. "Keep moving," the taxi driver whispered urgently. "We're almost there. Just a little further." I followed, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might explode. My lungs burned with every step, but I couldn't stop. I didn't dare. The shadows behind us moved with a speed and precision that was impossible, yet undeniable. They were always one step away, always calculating, always waiting. Suddenly, we reached a dead end. My stomach dropped. The walls towered above us, dark and unyielding. I spun around, no way out. Panic clawed at me like a wild animal. "They know," the driver muttered, eyes wide. We walked right into it. A low laugh echoed through the alley, slow, deliberate, mocking. The hair on my arms stood on end. From the darkness, a figure emerged. Tall, black-clad, moving like it glided across the ground. Its presence was suffocating, inhuman, and the moment it stopped, I felt its gaze pierce through me. The driver grabbed my arm. "Stay calm. Don't let it see fear. Just follow my lead." I nodded, trembling. My whole body was on fire with adrenaline and terror. Every instinct screamed to run, but the driver whispered, "Trust me." The figure stepped closer, each movement deliberate. The laugh came again, chilling and guttural. "Thought you could hide, huh?" the voice hissed. I froze. The driver cursed under his breath. "We have to distract it. Now." He grabbed a loose metal pipe from the ground and threw it to the far side of the alley. The pipe clanged loudly against the brick wall, echoing through the narrow space. The figure's head snapped toward the sound, giving us just enough time to slip past its position. We ran, zigzagging desperately through the alley maze, my legs on fire and lungs screaming. The figure moved again, impossibly fast, keeping pace just a few steps behind. The world around me blurred into shadows and flashing streetlights. Then, just when I thought we might have a chance, I tripped over a loose brick. My hands hit the ground hard, scraping my palms. The figure lunged forward, shadows stretching impossibly across the walls, and I felt a rush of cold air as if it had passed inches from me. The driver yanked me to my feet. "No time." "Come on," he shouted. We burst through another alleyway into a wider street. For the first time, I saw the city skyline, glowing faintly under the night sky. But relief was fleeting. The figure had vanished again, melting into the shadows. I knew it wasn't gone. It never left. The driver's face was pale, eyes scanning every dark corner. This is bad," he muttered. "They're not just hunting you, they're testing you. Seeing how far you'll go, what you can handle, and trust me, they always win if you slip even once." My chest heaved. Fear had taken over, but beneath it was something else. Determination. Somehow, I had to survive this night. Somehow, I had to outsmart whatever nightmare was hunting me. And as we slowed, catching our breath for just a moment, I realized the terrifying truth. The night wasn't just dangerous. It was alive, and it had a single focus: me. The city street opened before us, wide and empty, but the silence was deafening. My lungs were on fire, my legs trembling from the nonstop running, but I couldn't stop. Not now. The taxi driver's face was pale, and every glance he threw over his shoulder made my heart race faster. "They're still following," he muttered, voice tight. "And they're not going to let up. Not tonight. Not ever." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my thoughts focused. Who were they? Why me? And how could anyone or anything move so fast, vanish into shadows, and stalk someone like a predator hunting prey? A sudden noise made us freeze. A trash can clattered somewhere down the street. My pulse jumped. The driver grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a parked car. "Quiet. Don't even breathe too loud," he whispered. I obeyed, heart hammering, ears straining. And then I saw it. A figure, barely visible in the flickering light, moving in a way that made my skin crawl. Smooth, calculated, silent. It stopped suddenly, head tilted slightly, like it was studying us. Do you know who they are?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. The driver shook his head. "Not exactly, but I've seen them before. A shadow organization. People disappear under their watch, never to be seen again. They don't make mistakes. And now, they've set their sights on you." I felt bile rise in my throat. Me? Why would anyone want me gone? I had done nothing, at least nothing worth this kind of terror. The figure suddenly moved closer, slipping through the street like it was part of the night itself. I could feel its presence, cold and suffocating, brushing against my mind. My chest tightened, breath catching in my throat. Then the driver whispered something that froze me even more than the figure itself. "They're testing you, to see how far you'll go, to see what you'll risk. And if you fail, well, they always win." I wanted to ask what he meant, but before I could, the figure vanished again, melting into the shadows. I exhaled shakily, trying to calm myself, but the words lingered in my mind. They always win. We moved cautiously, staying in the dim light, trying to make sense of our next step. Every alley, every corner felt like a trap. I was trapped in a city that felt alive with danger, hunted by something smarter, faster, and colder than anything I had ever imagined. And then a sound different from before. A soft, deliberate tapping. Someone, or something, was ahead, waiting. The driver's eyes narrowed. This is it. Whatever happens next, there's no turning back. I felt my stomach drop. The night was far from over, and I realized with chilling clarity, the hunt wasn't just around me. It was inside me now, testing me, shaping me, breaking me. The narrow street felt like a trap, shadows stretching unnaturally across the cracked pavement. Every step I took was calculated, each breath measured, but my body refused to calm down. Adrenaline coursed through me like wildfire, making my muscles tense and my heart pound like a war drum. "They're ahead," the taxi driver whispered, eyes scanning the darkness like a hawk. "We have to move carefully. One wrong step and it's over." I nodded, though the thought of moving forward sent shivers down my spine. The city seemed alive in a way that was terrifying. Every corner, every flickering streetlight, every echo carried danger. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the street, fast, fluid, and silent. My stomach dropped. "There. Did you see that?" I hissed, barely daring to breathe. The driver nodded grimly. "Yeah, that's them, and they're getting closer, faster than before." We moved cautiously, sticking to the edges of the street, hoping the darkness would hide us, but it felt useless. The figures were always one step ahead, moving through the night like ghosts. Then from above, a sudden noise, a metallic scraping, faint but distinct. I looked up and saw a rooftop empty at first glance. But then a shadow shifted, just enough to make my blood run cold. Someone was watching from above, calculating our every move. "They're coordinating," the driver muttered under his breath. "This isn't random. They know exactly where we are, and they're forcing us into their game." My mind raced. Their game? I didn't even know the rules yet. All I knew was that we were trapped in a nightmare that had no boundaries, no safe zones, and no mercy. Suddenly, the driver pulled me into a narrow doorway, pressing me against the wall. "Hide here. Don't move. Don't make a sound." I crouched, heart hammering, trying to make myself as small as possible. The shadows moved past, brushing against the edges of the doorway. My pulse raced. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, a voice, soft, almost mocking, slipped through the darkness. "You can't escape. You never could." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Fear wasn't enough anymore. This was something beyond fear. It was pure, unrelenting terror, clawing at every part of me. The taxi driver hissed, "We have to keep moving. Now. No hesitation. You ready?" I nodded, barely able to breathe. The figure, or whoever they were, was out there, watching, waiting, always one step ahead. And I realized something chilling. The night had a plan for me, and I was trapped in it. We slipped out of the doorway, hearts pounding, every nerve screaming that we were being hunted. The street was quiet now, deceptively calm, like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to strike. "Keep your head down," the driver whispered urgently. "Move fast, but don't run blindly. One mistake and it's over." I nodded, my muscles trembling. Every step felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. The shadows around us shifted, always in the corner of my vision, teasing me, daring me to look directly. Then, without warning, a figure dropped from above, landing silently in front of us. I froze. The driver grabbed my arm, yanking me behind a stack of crates. The figure stood there for a second, surveying us, then vanished as quickly as it appeared. My chest heaved. How are they moving like that?" I whispered. "They're not human," the driver muttered. "Or if they are, they're trained like predators. Every step you see, every movement, it's calculated to scare you, to test you. And now, they know we're desperate." We moved again, carefully, staying in the shadows. But the city seemed to conspire against us. The flickering streetlights, the sudden gusts of wind, every loose piece of trash seemed like a signal, a warning. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed behind us. I spun, and a figure was standing at the far end of the street, its silhouette outlined by a flickering neon sign. Its presence was overwhelming, suffocating, and I could feel the danger pressing in like a physical force. The driver hissed, "Go! Now!" We sprinted, weaving through the streets, jumping over debris, my lungs burning, my legs on fire. But no matter how fast we ran, the sense of being followed never left. Every shadow seemed alive. Every corner held a threat. Then, a voice, low and chilling, echoed behind us. "You can't escape. Not tonight." I risked a glance over my shoulder. Nothing, just darkness, just the city, but the terror was real, crawling over me like icy fingers. The driver pulled me into a narrow alley, his face pale. "We have to split up," he said urgently. "It's the only way. I'll draw them off, give you a chance to get out." My stomach dropped. "What? No. We stick together." He shook his head. "No time. Go. Don't look back." Before I could protest, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone in the alley with nothing but darkness and the echo of my own terrified heartbeat. I swallowed hard, chest heaving, realizing something horrifying. I was on my own now, and whatever or whoever was hunting me wasn't going to give up. Not for a second. The alley swallowed me whole, darkness pressing in from every side. My chest heaved, heart pounding like a drum, legs trembling from exhaustion. The driver was gone, vanished into the shadows, leaving me alone, and that alone was worse than anything I could have imagined. I forced myself to move, every step careful, every sound measured. The night was alive with danger. The shadows twisted unnaturally, and every faint noise made me jump. My mind screamed at me to run, but I knew speed alone wouldn't save me. I had to be smart. A sudden sound, a faint scuff of a shoe on concrete made me freeze. My stomach lurched. Someone or something was close. Too close. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, hoping the darkness would swallow me. Then a voice, soft and chilling, whispered from the shadows, "You shouldn't be here." I swallowed hard, legs trembling. Who are you?" I managed, voice barely audible. Silence. And then, movement. A shadow flitted across the wall, too fast to track, too deliberate to be human. My instincts screamed run, but I couldn't see where to go. I spotted a fire escape ladder on the side of a building, a possible way up, possible way out. I sprinted toward it, adrenaline surging through me, ignoring the burning in my lungs. My hands gripped the rungs as I climbed, every creak of metal a deafening alarm in the silent night. Halfway up, I glanced down. The street below was empty, too empty. My stomach dropped. The shadows had vanished, but I knew it wasn't over. Whoever or whatever was hunting me was just waiting, calculating my next move. I climbed to the rooftop, gasping, heart hammering. The city sprawled beneath me, glowing faintly under the night sky. For a moment, I allowed myself to breathe, thinking I might be safe, at least for now. And then I saw it. Across the next rooftop, just a few dozen feet away, a figure stood motionless, watching me, waiting. Its presence was suffocating, cold, calculated. I froze. My chest tightened. This was no random stalker. This was someone or something, trained, patient, unstoppable. My hands shook, adrenaline surging as I realized the horrifying truth. The hunt wasn't over. It had just become personal. A sudden thought hit me. If I wanted to survive, I had to think like them. I had to outsmart them. One wrong move, and it was over. But how do you outsmart someone or something that always seemed one step ahead? The figure shifted slightly, just enough for me to see the glint of something metallic in its hand. My heart skipped. I had no weapons, no backup, just me and my wits. And I realized something terrifying. Survival tonight wouldn't just be about speed or luck. It would be about courage, cunning, and sheer willpower. The hunt was far from over, and I had no idea how much longer I could last. The rooftop felt like the edge of the world, cold metal under my hands, wind whipping past my face. Every heartbeat echoed in my chest as I stared across at the figure, motionless yet alive with threat. My pulse was deafening, but I forced myself to stay calm because panic was exactly what they wanted. I scanned the surroundings. The rooftops were uneven, connected by rusted pipes and fire escapes. I had to move, had to find a way down, but every step felt like a gamble. One misstep, and it could be the end. The figure shifted, taking a slow step forward. I could see a metallic glint in their hand, a knife maybe, or something sharper. My stomach lurched. The hunter wasn't just watching. They were ready, waiting for me to slip. I took a deep breath and made my decision. Speed and cunning had to replace fear. I sprinted across the narrow ledge, careful, deliberate, heart hammering, lungs burning. The figure mirrored me, gliding effortlessly across the rooftops, silent and precise. Halfway across, I spotted a narrow alley below, a possible escape route, but it was risky. The drop wasn't huge, but enough to twist an ankle or worse. My mind raced. I had no choice. I had to jump. I took a running start and leapt, landing hard but stable. Pain shot through my legs, but I kept moving, rolling to absorb the impact. The figure didn't jump immediately. They assessed, calculated, and then followed, faster than I thought possible. I ran through the alley, weaving between dumpsters and debris, every shadow a potential threat. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but the thought of being caught drove me forward. Then, a door ahead, slightly ajar, a possible hideout. I dove inside, slamming it shut behind me, heart hammering, sweat stinging my eyes. I pressed myself against the wall, barely daring to breathe. Outside, the faintest footsteps echoed. I could hear the figure moving, scanning, searching, and then silence. For a brief, terrifying moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe I had lost them. Maybe I had survived. But then a voice, low and chilling, whispered through the crack of the door. "You can't hide forever." My stomach dropped. The night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The small room smelled of dust and damp wood, but I barely noticed. My body ached, lungs burned, and every nerve in my body screamed that I wasn't safe. I pressed myself flat against the wall, listening, heart pounding, ears straining. Then the whisper again, "You can't hide forever." I held my breath, staring at the crack in the door. My mind raced. What did they want? Why me? Every instinct screamed that I had to act, but I had no plan, no weapon, no backup. Just desperation. A shadow shifted in the doorway. The figure stepped inside, slow, deliberate, movements unnervingly human yet inhuman. My eyes widened. Then a voice familiar, impossible. "You." I gasped, my throat dry. The mask came off. The face staring back at me was one I'd known, one I trusted. Someone I never thought could be part of this nightmare, the taxi driver. My mind froze. Betrayal, confusion, and fear collided. "What? Why?" I choked out. Here it smirked, eyes cold and calculating. "Did you really think I was helping you? This was never about keeping you safe. It was about testing you. Seeing if you had what it takes to survive the night." I staggered back, disbelief crashing over me. The hunts, the shadows, the rooftop chase, all orchestrated. Every life-or-death moment was a test. You set this up?" I whispered, voice shaking. He shrugged casually, as if it were nothing. "Sometimes the only way to find out who survives is to push them to the edge. And you? You survived longer than most." I felt anger, betrayal, and terror mixed together, threatening to overwhelm me. But somewhere deep inside, a spark of defiance ignited. I won't let this end with you controlling me." His eyes narrowed, and for the first time I saw something different, a hint of respect. Maybe not. But surviving isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to move, when to think, when to outsmart the game. You've learned a lot tonight. But the game isn't over. I swallowed hard, adrenaline surging. The night had tested me, hunted me, and nearly broken me, but I had survived. And now the real challenge began, escaping not just the shadows, but the betrayal. The figure stepped back, letting me breathe, letting me see the reality. The night wasn't just dangerous, it was a lesson. And I was ready to learn, ready to fight, and ready to survive on my own terms. The hunt wasn't over. But for the first time, I realized, maybe, just maybe, I could win. The room felt suffocating, but I forced myself to move. Every muscle ached, every step was agony, but my mind was razor sharp now. I couldn't trust anyone, not the streets, not the shadows, and certainly not the taxi driver who had betrayed me. I scanned the room. A small window, barely big enough to slip through, offered a possible way out. My pulse raced. This was it, the final move, the choice between being trapped or fighting for freedom. Carefully, I climbed toward the window, heart hammering. I could hear the driver behind me, footsteps slow, measured, as if he knew exactly what I was doing. My hands gripped the ledge, sweat stinging my eyes. "You really think you can escape?" His voice whispered behind me, cold and mocking. I swallowed hard. "Watch me." I pushed with all my strength, slipping through the narrow opening. The cool night air hit me, sharp and liberating. Below, the streets stretched out, quiet and empty. I had seconds, maybe less, to make it to safety. Landing hard on the ground, I rolled to absorb the impact. Pain shot through my legs, but I ignored it, sprinting toward the nearest alley exit. Every shadow felt like it could reach out and grab me, but I kept moving, one step, then another, refusing to look back. The taxi driver's voice echoed once more, distant but mocking. "You survived. This time, I didn't stop." Not until the city lights opened up before me, the streets familiar and strangely comforting. My chest heaved, my legs burned, but I was free. For now. I paused, looking back at the alley, the rooftops, the darkness that had nearly consumed me. Fear still lingered, but so did something else: strength, resilience, and the unshakable knowledge that I had survived the impossible. The night had tested me, pushed me to the brink, and nearly broken me, but I had outlasted it. And though the shadows may return, I knew one thing for certain: I would face them differently next time. Smarter, stronger, and unafraid. The city was quiet now, the hunt over for now. And as I disappeared into the night, I realized the ultimate truth. Surviving wasn't luck. It was courage, determination, and refusing to let the darkness win. The night was over. But the lessons it taught me would stay forever.